Hello learners. Today we are going to continue with the lecture that we had begun yesterday. That was in the previous lecture. That was tragedy. In the previous lecture I had taken up the definition of it, which was given by Aristotle, as well as the important elements of the tragedy, which were discussed by Plato. Those were the six elements: plot, character, thought, diction, melody, and spectacle. Out of these six, we had already talked about the four, which were taken, not given that much detail by Aristotle. So we had finished that in the previous lecture, but the first two elements, that is plot and character, they are very, very important elements of any tragedy, so much so that separate lectures are required to explain them. They cannot be covered in a single lecture. So today's lecture would be completely dedicated to plot. The first one, this is so significant part of any tragedy according to Aristotle that he went to the extent of calling plot as the soul of any tragedy. So let us just begin with plot today and what all concept he has given through this for any tragedy. Let us first of all talk about plot, the word plot. What is the meaning of a plot? Plot is basically the part where there is the imitation of action happening, through which the imitation of action is happening. That is the whole, that action itself is the plot, right? But this plot is different from story. Story is basically here story basically means the basic storyline that can be understood as a form, like as a word theme also. Like if we say that a common story is that there is a boy, there is a girl, for a romantic story, that there is a girl or there is a boy, they fall in love and there are some problems in their life, and at the end they get married for a happy ending, and at the end they die because of the family rivalry and all. So that is sad ending, tragic ending. So such kind of main theme of the story or the main storyline would be understood as stories, whereas the proper arrangement of incident that happen, that occur in conveying the whole idea to the audience, is very important over here, which is actually plot. So the arrangement of the story, that how they are going to be presented through episodes, like through incidents one after the other, that should be understood as plot over here. So we are here going to discuss in detail about plot. First of all, let us come to the definition that was given, and the first section of the definition that was given by Aristotle, which says that the tragedy is a representation of an action that is serious, complete, and of certain magnitude. This was the very first section of the tragedy, which is defined by Aristotle, and the rest of the things are the constituent parts that come later on. But the opening line itself tells us that what should be the characteristics of those actions which are to be presented before the answer, the audience. So they are actually, such action should be how they should be serious, that should be serious, it should be complete, that is whole, and it should have certain magnitude. These three terms let us just understood in regard of plot, because this is actually this is where he begins talking about plot, what should be the quality of, or the characteristics of any plot. So one by one let us discuss the things, and on the slide you can see there is another characteristic, that is organic unity, which I will be discussing, because Aristotle has taken up this thing in a completely different chapter, that is chapter 8 of the work. So I am going to talk about that also, but let us just finish understanding the first three factors, which we have already seen in the definition also. So the very first characteristic is that a plot should be serious. Everyone understand what we mean by seriousness, right? That means there is no fun element into it. It is going to be like, thrilling. It is going to be nonsensical part, so it should be serious in itself, right? So he says that a good tragic plot or a good tragedy is the story of the serious incidents or episodes happening in the life of an individual. And if you talk about a epic kind of story, it could be a nature also. So anything that is serious happening to an individual can be considered as a serious action. Fine. So these serious action would be more impressive if it is happening to some serious person. Here serious means a person who is important in rank in society. So if all these serious things that are happening to some serious important figure, then it can be considered a more serious action which can actually produce some kind of impact on the audience. Now let me explain this thing with equally old story, that is Ramayana or Mahabharata, because we are talking about Aristotle over here. So let us take such example. He is from antiquity. I am also choosing some examples from antiquity. When we talk about Ramayana, the incidents that are chosen, it is chosen from the life of Lord Rama or the life of Pandavas or other people related to it. But all these people were of important stature, and the incidents that were happening to them were actually serious, right? Those serious actions were impacting the common people as well. So it has profound impact on the audience as well, because they are seeing the incidents which relate to them also, the common mass also. Here you have to keep in mind that when we say serious action, these could be something big happening, right? It is not just losing your money. That is not just serious. It majorly the serious part is that it could be dethronement, or by any chance you were like Rama was promised to be the king, but due to some reasons, due to the reasons very obvious, everybody knows, he could not be the king. So such kind of serious motives, such kind of serious actions, when these are the subject of the action, the plot, then it can be called serious action. Other than this, it could be betrayal by a king or a queen, it could be murder of a king. So all these things are considered serious, and a very important thing that is a disintegration of families and relationship. So such kind of things can be called serious over here. So as I earlier mentioned, that these incidents should occur in the life of some person of important stature, important rank in the society, maybe a king, commander, general, like that. So these serious action, as I say again, I have already mentioned that it would influence the common mass if it has universal appeal in it. So that has to be kept in mind, that just shopping or spending money, making lavish palaces, these are not serious action which is going to impact or influence the common mass. Something which is related to the common people, like the betrayal of some family by some family member, or your separation from your loved ones. So these things are going to actually impact the common people as well, the common audience as well. So such kind of plots which have serious actions should be considered, or it should be the focus of a good tragic plot. The writer should focus on such kind of serious actions. So that is the first part, that is the plot should be serious. Let us come to the second part, that the plot should be whole or complete. Here the second point that which is required for a good tragic plot is that the imitation which has been happening should be complete or whole in itself. A whole here means the action should have a beginning, a middle, and an end. A beginning is that which does not follow anything, but after that something naturally happens. Here I would like to explain you the last point that is written in on the slide. You can see that plot is structured on the basis of the law of probability and necessity. So let me just explain these terms. Probability means that chances of happening something, like how many chances are there that this thing would occur, or that is called probability. And necessity is that here means it is going to happen no matter what. So that is law of probability and necessity. Any such work of creativity, an artist follow this thing in his mind, that what are all the chances that can happen after this incident, and what are the things which should actually happen. So that is called the law of probability and necessity. And another important law is the law of cause and effect. There are few things which become the reason for some future incident to happen, and when that action happens or that incident happens, there is definitely going to be the some kind of effect which would which is sure to take place after that. So these two laws are there which the writer should keep in mind always: the law of probability and necessity and the law of cause and effect, for definitely writing the plot of the drama also, the tragic plot also. So he says, the writer tries to explain over here that what is a beginning. Beginning is something that nothing is happening before it. It is starting from a point that before that nothing is possible. But after this point, it is certain that something would occur naturally. So some action would be followed after that. So that is a beginning according to him. And on the contrary, he explains the end also. So like from in the beginning there is nothing happening before it, in the end there would nothing happen after that, but this end is occurring due to some previous actions. So in simple way we can in a literary way we can say an end is is the opposite of beginning. It follows something but has nothing following it. This end is happening after some incidents, like there is some incidents which has occurred before it, and then at the end comes, and but there is nothing possible after that. So that is the end. So beginning and end, once you have understood, they are opposite of each other. So the middle section is the middle part, which is like that it follows something and it is followed by something. Something definitely happens before it and something will happen after that. So that is the middle. So a beginning, a middle and an end all together in a proper sequence, in a natural sequence, will make the plot complete, will make the plot whole. So the point is that they should occur naturally with the laws of probability and necessity in mind, that that has to be kept in mind. But and the writer should also keep in mind that there should be no overlap of the sections. Beginning and middle should not be very close to each other, that there is no proper space given for the incident, that the reason gets lost after that, and the audience is not able to digest that how suddenly this happened. There should be proper space or proper time given to the actions to develop. So a beginning, middle and end should be in a natural sequence and they should not overlap. So it is actually the quality of the artist, the poet or the dramatist, that how he is going to manage these incidents, so that all these section beginning, middle and end, they come one after the other and they appear as a whole. So they have to occur in a way that ultimately they are appearing as a complete thing, but they have the quality which is earlier mentioned, that how beginning is going to be and how middle is going to be and how end is going to be. Those qualities have to be maintained by that those episodes, those sections of any plot. So this would be understood as the completeness, the wholeness of the plot, keeping in mind the three section of making it complete. Now let us come to the third point that he gave in his definition, that is a certain magnitude. This third factor is equally important for a good tragic plot. uh, it is actually what he means by that. We have to understand that. So he it is actually magnitude would be understood as the considerable length, the length of the tragedy. The length should be neither too short nor too long. According to him, the appropriate length of any tragedy would be that where the incidents can take place in a natural manner, and this length should be good enough from to change the status quo, to change the situation, to change the fortune. Excuse me, from a good fortune to bad, or the bad fortune to one. So the space in there should be good enough that the change is visible, or the change is quite acceptable by the audience. He also emphasizes that the length should be to the normal limits of memory, which definitely he means by that it should never to be too long, because you want to give space to incidents to happen or to occur naturally. That doesn't mean that you are going to waste a lot of time in between for the development of the course of action. So that time has to be in a standard form, neither too short nor too long. So that is what he meant by magnitude. Now let us just talk about the next point, that is organic unity, which I have written here, that plot should should have actually organic unity. I should have written that way, that organic unity, or it could be understood by as a particular chapter as unity of action. Now, by unity, Aristotle means that there are infinite, incidents that happen to the central character. If we talk about Rama's life, it is an epic. So, but we are talking about tragedy over here. And when we are writing the tragedy, all the incidents that are happening in the central character's life would not contribute to the single theme of the story. You have to very clearly understand this. By unity of action, what Aristotle meant. Aristotle meant that there are many incidents that are serious also, they are interesting also, that may be happening to the central character. But one cannot have all those incidents in that particular work, of tragedy, because it should be like that, that all those incidents that you want to show through your tragedy should work, or should work in single direction. They should actually work in a way, or to achieve, work in a way that they are able to achieve a single theme. They are able to contribute to the main storyline. So one has to select, or it is the work of the poet to select the proper incidents, so that the action can be focused on a single theme. So this is very important. And when this is done, the whole plot would appear as a organic whole. By organic whole, I mean that there is no unnecessary part in it, or there is no part missing from it. If you add something extra, it is not going to affect the plot. And if you remove something from it, then the whole plot is going to be misplaced. The whole essence is going to be lost. So the plot should be like that. There should be nothing extra, there should be nothing missing. If something like this happen, that if you are adding something to the plot and it is not giving any effect to the plot extra, that it is not in the continuation of that theme, then there is no use of that incident. Similarly, if you remove any part of the plot and still there is no effect to the plot, that means that was never a part of that organic whole. So unity of action means the choice of such actions which is going to aim at a single theme, and all these actions should aim at achieving, or to express that single theme. So that is what he meant by unity of action, and ultimately organic unity. Let us come now to the formative elements of plot. What he means by the elements of plot, these formative elements of plot, these are the elements which make any plot more interesting, right? The first one I have written is peripetia. Peripetia is a peripety, I should say. Peripety is a Greek term for reversal. Aristotle means by this that there is a change from good to bad fortune or bad to good fortune. Generally, for a tragedy, it is almost like from a good fortune, it changes into a bad one. So, that is actually reversal, which is what he means over here. So there is a change in the position of fortune from a good fortune to bad one, because we are talking in light of in the understanding of tragedy. So that is the first one, peripety. Next is anagnorisis, which simply means recognition or discovery of truth. It happens that the characters were under some kind of ignorance, but due to some natural cause or some not natural, I would say that some some process of time, some process of situations, it happens that the ignorance is taken away and the character gets the particular knowledge, and this also leads into a very big change in the whole course of tragedy. He says that the best kind of recognition is that which is followed by a reversal. When the central character gets to know something very significant, very important, and after that there is a change in the fortune. He gives the example of Oedipus Rex, that how he gets the king. Now Oedipus Rex gets to know that he has murdered his own father and married his own mother, and after that he goes into kind of guilt session, and he gouges out his eyes after that. So that is a kind of discovery, that he gets to know that the person whom he killed was his own father and the person whom he married was his own mother. So that discovery changed his situation from a good fortune, because he had become a fresh king, a new king. And when he realizes this thing, whole fortune that he had achieved by his own efforts were lost. So there was a change in the fortune. So Aristotle says that such kind of discoveries which leads to reversal of fortune are the best kind of discoveries. So when the dramatist is writing such things, they should keep in mind, because such this implementation of such things would lead to evocation of strong emotions among the audience, right? So this is very important element of a plot. A plot becomes more interesting with such elements. He also explains that there are many ways this discovery can be done. It could be through some people, and you have seen in Hindi movies earlier that there was some birthmark, and then you recognize अच्छा कि ये हमारा खोया हुआ बेटा है, or there is some kind of locket, pendant, like the story of Shakuntala. There was a ring which was lost, which was the sign of his love, which was lost, and King Dushyant could not recall his beloved. But when he finds that ring from some other source, he quickly recalls the whole story behind. So this is what happens. This is what these are the elements which leads to discoveries. Or there could be a letter, secret letter, many of the situation stories you have known. I would also mention another Greek term, that is deus ex machina, which literally means God and machine. Sometimes gods were also called to throw light on some kind of mysteries or puzzles and solve some kind of complications. So that was called God and machine, and but Aristotle did not appreciate such kind of discovery. The discovery should be inanimate and trivial things which just may happen to have occur in one's life. So that is the best kind of discovery methods. So these two, reversal and recognition, as I told you, peripety and anagnorisis, are the elements of plot which creates a kind of suspense and surprise in the plot. But what happens after this? You get this surprise, you get this suspense, but after revelation of the truth and everything, the change in fortune, what happens? That is suffering. Suffering is very important in a tragedy, as you know, because and this suffering happens due to that guilt, due to that death or bad experience. The central character mainly goes into a kind of deep suffering, which ultimately evokes emotions in the audience also. Before moving ahead to the emotions evoked in the audience, let us just talk about the types of plot. Aristotle suggests two kinds of plot, that is simple plot and another is complex plot. Simple plot would be that where the plot is very simple, as the word suggests, where there is no suspense, no thrill, no truth revelation and everything. On the contrary, we have the other kind which is appreciated by him, that is complex plot. Complex plot will be that where the elements of a fable, the formative elements of fable are introduced, and which gives a kind of thrill to the audience, because these plots are more effective as compared to simple plot. How more effective? Like, what do you mean by more effective? What is the ultimate thing that has to be achieved through tragedy? What is the function of a tragedy? In the definition, if you recall the last line, he says that all the actions and all would be a mean to evoke the emotion of pity and fear, and which will bring catharsis of emotion. These words now you have to keep in mind: catharsis, and the emotion that he is dealing, the tragedy is dealing, is pity and fear. All that suffering would evoke the kind of emotions in the audience that would be of pity and fear. Actually, this is actually the ultimate aim of any tragic plot. And as these formative elements are always helpful, I have written all those points over here in the slide also. But now we have to understand that how pity would arise. Here, and one important term would be introduced to you again. The feeling of genuine pity among the audience is evoked through the suffering of a good character, which has occurred due to his error of judgment. You have to very well keep in mind that this pity, a genuine kind of pity the audience feel for this central character, it would not happen if you see a bad person suffering on the stage. If you see a bad person punished on stage, you would say it is his karma, it is the law of God, it is the justice of God. He has done something wrong and he's going to pay that way. He's going to be punished, and it is very good. And one actually enjoys that section when the evil is punished. But a genuine pity would only arise when a person sees a good person suffering, a person who was not bad. Actually, he did not deserve that punishment, but it is not like that the good person is suffering without reason. There is one reason. There is one reason, that is called the error of judgment. That is a tragic flaw, and the term for it is hamartia. So hamartia is very important characteristics introduced in the central character, where he is unable to do a kind of proper judgment, and that error of judgment leads to the loss of things or the change of fortunes many a times. If you just recall similarly, if you talk about the story of Ramayana, where Dashrath, in a happy moment, he just happened to have promised his wife of some wish fulfillment after a war. He said that I am going to fulfill your any wish, and she was very smart enough to say that I am going to ask it in a right time, right? So that was an error of judgment. He should have then and there fulfilled that thing, but out of a happy state, he just had happened to do that. He never thought that it is going to have so deep aftermaths or effects of those, that promise that he had made at a happy moment. So that is hamartia, that is a tragic flaw. Similarly, if you see the story of your Othello, that was the error of judgment of Othello, that he could not believe in the character of his wife, and he was out, due to some kind of insecurity, he just happened to believe that his wife is deceiving him, so he killed her. And later on, when he got to know that it was all a planned thing Iago has put in his mind and all, then he repented so badly that he killed himself. The same incident happens in King Lear. So this tragic flaw, this error of judgment, which can be understood as hamartia in Greek, that leads to the suffering of the central character, not because he is bad. So then when you see a good person suffering due to some small error, then you actually feel pity for them. Now you will ask that why fear comes, why this emotion of fear arises. This fear arises with the thought that if such great people, such powerful people, such idealized people, heroic characters, if they have to suffer in their life, they commit some wrong thing, and then they are subjected to such pain. So the common audience are common people, they can be subjected to such fate any day, because they have the tendency of committing flaws and errors in their life. So this can happen to them any time. So that's how the emotion of pity and fear, they get evoked in the audience, and then they fear for themselves, they pity for the character. All these feelings of pity and fear are so powerful when they are evoked, that then they result into a kind of emotional catharsis. Now here we have to understand a very important term, catharsis, which is not explained very much by Aristotle in his work, but in definition the term definitely has come, the catharsis of emotions. I'm going to explain a bit that what are the thought behind this word catharsis. Catharsis actually means purgation or purification of our body system, right? This is actually a medical kind of term, psychological kind of term. But here in Aristotelian sense, what Aristotle meant by that it means purification of the excess of pity and fear from the human heart under the effect of tragedy. How he has used catharsis to explain that the result function of a tragedy is to remove the excess emotion of pity and fear from common people, so that they are purified, their mind and soul are they get purified, they are purgated, right? So that is what Aristotle tries to implicate over here. That's why he has used this term, right? Though this term is not elaborated, as I said, in his work, but the latest scholars and critics paid a close attention to this section, and most of them agreed to this, to the fact that catharsis refers to a moral effect, that on your mind and soul. It's not a physical effect, not outside thing, it is the inside thing, the nature, the mental state, you may say. So they have agreed to this point, that it is a moral effect which tragedy produces through the purification of the passions. There's a scholar called Butcher who has proposed this point too. This whole idea of purgation of excess emotion works in the positive favor of poetics, for the defense of poetry, because it establishes the pure functions of tragedy. As I told you, this is the function of tragedy, to remove excess emotion, and that excess emotions are basically pity and fear. like anything excess or anything unnecessary, that if that is there in your body, it starts giving you problem, right? So if you talk about emotions, if you have excess of emotions in your mind and soul, then again you are going to be affected. Your mind and soul are, they are going to be affected. So he says that there is a natural way of removing these excess emotion, by first elevating them. And how this elevation is done? Through tragedy. So when one watches tragedy, these emotions are so elevated that it results into a kind of relief. When you must have all noticed that when you watch some tragic scene, you start crying, because all that emotions get a kind of release from you, right? So that release is very much important. You must have heard that it is good, crying is good for health, because it helps to remove that excess emotion which has got accumulated inside you. And it does happen that in real life we are unable to face such emotions, or to accept such emotions that we actually are imposed, or are burdened by them. Generally it happens that we feel very picky sometimes, we are very angry sometimes, we are so very cracky sometimes. But it happens when you see some kind of show where you are crying with the due to the suffering of the characters, you start kind of release. There is an outlet for you. You can release out all that accumulated emotions, and you feel light. That lightness is a kind of pleasurable relief. So catharsis becomes an important theory in the defense of poetry in general and tragedy in particular. So because this is all explained through tragedy, so it is this what we understand here. That will be all for today. Thank you.